In the spirit of reconciliation, Grab the Trace acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
Welcome to the Grab the Trace podcast, a home design show to help you deliver your next project to its full potential. I'm architect Lachlan Anderson and I'm joined by my co-host, interior designer Mikaela Garrick. If you're looking for some tips and secrets for your next project, be it a new home, renovating, or even just picking what window furnishings would best suit your space, we have you covered. Whilst we'll try to help as much as possible, this podcast is of a general nature and won't be able to take into account your individual circumstance. If you need personalised advice, you should engage a relevant professional consultant to help make the best decisions for your situation. This week, we're talking about what we're referring to as the building blocks of home design. So stick around, pull up your plans, and let's grab the trace. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grab the Trace podcast. We hope you had the chance to listen to our first episode on mood boards and you got as much out of it as we did. I'm joined once again by Mikaela, my co-host.
Oh, hi guys.
Now, Mikaela, this week we're talking about the building blocks of home design. Is that correct?
We are. Can't wait to get into it.
Fantastic. Now, before we do get into it, we've got a few housekeeping items once again.
As always.
First of all, thank you everyone for reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. I see those cheeky 3 little 5-star reviews. If you want to do a written review, we're more than happy to read it out on the podcast. So hit those up, send them in to go along with it. So, as I was saying, we've gotten a couple of 5-star reviews. So thank you very much everyone for that. We did get quite a lot of traction, a bit of followerage from our posts about the inspiration grams from last week. So thank you everyone. Speaking of inspiration gram,
here we go, another week.
It's time everybody. I'll go first once again. My pick this week, I've been thinking about my picks from the last 2 weeks, and yes, they've been stunning additions to everyone's life, but I really needed to pull out the big guns today. After looking at the response we received from the Georgie Shepherd post, I've got to pull out the big guns. So everyone, this week we are diving deep into the Thornbury townhouses, a project by Fowler and Ward Architects. I'll let the finished photos kind of speak for themselves, but this one's a little bit of an interesting one as well. So you heard me right, I said townhouses. So in this development, we had a combined effort between a family and I think it might have even been the husband's parents or the wife's parents. And we're talking about a townhouse where on one side of the wall lives the husband and the wife and the newborn baby. And on the other half of the wall, I think a couple of days a week live their parents. Really close, able to help out with all the things you need to do with the new bub. So
sorry, I'm stalking all these photos while
I think it's a really, really nice development. And one of the main benefits potentially you, our listeners, getting out of it is, especially with the way housing prices are going up. And I mean, this is all based on the fact that you might have a good relationship with your parents as well. But if you can potentially think of it this way, you're splitting all of the costs. You don't have to buy a block of land individually. You can buy a block of land as a partnership between the two groups. You can split construction costs. There's efficiencies to that because it's one continuous build as opposed to 2 separate builds. Even all the consultant costs, like they engaged Fowler and Ward as the architects, you're essentially paying half of an architect to get something designed to you. I think it's a really cool thing to do. So that's my pick for this week. Mikaela, wow us.
All right, guys, here we go. So Mikaela's pick of the week. So last week I obviously did Georgie Shepherd. And if you already haven't had a chance, please do go onto our Instagram, have a look at the photos there. Absolutely stunning. There's some gorgeous materials, use of materials, design, palette. It's absolutely stunning. But this week, I have chosen, again, another beauty, another interior designer, Australian-based as well, and her name is Lucy Bock, and in particular, her Toorak house. So again, hopefully, I'm going to upload some photos tomorrow onto our Instagram of the Lucy Bock Toorak house, and it is...
Oh my Lord, I've just pulled it up. Unreal.
I told you. Now, it might not be everyone's cup of tea when they look at it in terms of colours or palette or even style. However, the details of this project, it is insane. It all stems from, if you go to this first photo that I'll upload onto about the project, is the dining space. Now, in this dining space, they've got this beautiful featured textured glass cabinet. And from that, this whole apartment has taken details based off this cabinet. So there's some beautiful geometric designs, there's some textured glass. They've kind of taken that design and then just carried it through in every single space. So if you go to the kitchen and you see these stunning images of an island bench, there's this geometric cutout, how they've used two-toned stone, how they've applied it. They've got herringbone floors, which again is replicating that geometric design. You go to this freestanding furniture piece like cabinet in the kitchen, and internal they've got these like beautiful plum, almost like aubergine coloured cabinets internally. Then you go into the living space and it's got the same continuation of palette and stone and materials, but it's got this, beautiful plush velvet lounge in that rich purple tone. So definitely that is my pick of the week. Please enjoy, give it a like on Instagram, have a look, even look at her other projects. Absolutely stunning. And I'm sure in future weeks, I'll be happy to go through some more Lucy Bock projects.
There we go. Alrighty, everybody. Now it's over to the segment that everyone loves.
Oh, we've got home hacks.
Home hacks. I'm going to kick it off again this week with something a little more, architecturally inclined.
Oh, he's coming into his own, guys. He wants to show me up. I think he's been a little bit like,
I'm ready to flex. I'm ready to flex. I'm ready to progress from sheer curtains at the moment. At the moment, I will be back. I want to talk just briefly about external colours and some considerations. I'm sure we'll do an episode in the future about colours and painting, but just some kind of basic stuff that I want to pass on that I actually learned when I went to university. Black is a pretty dark colour. Can you agree with that, Mikaela?
Yeah, look, it's actually a lack of colour, but yep.
That's a better point. So black also has the trait of high absorbance in terms of solar radiation. So I've got a little infograph here that kind of jogged my memory, but black has an absorption rating of about 98%. So if you shine the sun at a wall and it's painted in black, 98% of that will be retained in that brick, or at least held for a period of time. It will dissipate and spread out. To give you a comparison, white is only 20%, so much more reflective. Where this will come into play for you at home mainly will be roof colours. So when you're picking your roof, and this will do an episode on passive design, don't worry, I won't leave you in the lurch. White roofs will result in a cooler house. In the climate that we're in Brisbane, it's hot summers, and even though winters are cool, it's still pretty hot. So if you've got a light or a white coloured roof, you're going to be bringing in less heat through that layer. And then if you add on a few layers of insulation underneath there, beautiful. Black can be mitigated through additional insulating layers and some reflective foil put in the ceiling. That's a really important effort to make if you are going to go black, just to make sure that it's comfortable and you're not having to blast the air conditioning all year round. Another thing that I was talking to you earlier about, Mikaela, was when you're looking at a galvanised roof, even though to the eye that looks like a lighter coloured roof, because there's no pigment or colour associated with it and it's reflective. When we were doing this at university, there was a few experiments we kind of did. The galvanised roofs or the reflective roof sheeting didn't hit a peak. It just kept accelerating in terms of the amount of, or how hot the surface of it got, where black would tap out at a certain point, white would tap out a lot lower on the scale. So if you've got this is probably more relevant to old Queenslanders where you do have that galvanised roof. If you've got that and you're feeling quite hot, it might be worth maybe getting someone around to paint it. What I'm trying to say is if you paint your roof in a lighter colour, you will find that your house is more comfortable for a wider period of the year. On the converse, when you're painting things black, there is advantages to it, especially in winter or in colder climates, because it is holding in that heat a little bit more, attracting the heat and holding it in. That's why you see solar hot water tubes on people's roofs. That's why that's all in black, because the water that's in there attracts the heat quicker, warms it up. So that's my home hack for this week, colour.
Love it. Thanks, Lockie. All right, my home hack for the week, wardrobes. Now, I know it might sound a little bit boring. However, I have seen it, done it, had to put together that much IKEA in my time that I have a little hack to do with IKEA wardrobes. So my hack is, instead of just obviously building these cabinets, putting all your IKEA together, sliding it into the side of the room and calling it a day, my suggestion is to create almost like a provision. So we're going to raise up and almost build out a little platform, pop our IKEA carcass cabinets on that. Then we're going to build in a bulkhead, build in the walls around it. So we're pretty much creating like a little hidey hole for our carcasses to kind of slide into. What that's going to do is give you a lot more custom finish. It's going to look built in. It's going to look purposeful. Again, another little hack that I love to do is just do their really cost-effective 500 wide hinge doors. Flat, white, I think it's one of the cheapest finishes you can get from the IKEA wardrobe range, but then put your own handles on it. Do custom joinery, do your custom skirting. So if you've got your really, really high skirting, let's say we've gone a little bit bougie and we've gone and got our, 230 high in trim skirting and beautiful architraves. We've got architraves all the way around these built-in wardrobes now. We've raised up the platform up to 230. We've continued that skirting underneath it. We've got the beautiful architraves. We've got beautiful white doors, white walls.
Stop it.
And then we've got some beautiful, what I call cabinetry jewelry, is our joinery handles. Just a little bit of bling on our doors. And again, you can do custom, you can even make your own joinery handles out of timber.
You can.
And we have an experienced builder here. Lockie's done exactly that. I think, did you go IKEA? You did everything custom in the same thing? You actually made your own wardrobe
So for
handles.
the renovation at Ipswich, I spent a couple of weekends turning my own door handles. I took inspiration from some of the pre-existing ones in terms of the profiles, and then I think I got some nice chunky bits of Tasmanian oak and just went nuts.
Stop. So nice. It's just a really nice way of getting that custom look, bit on the cheap, bit of a house hack. This is what this whole segment's about. But I find, again, IKEA is just so useful. Same or similar to what I said last episode about the kitchens. All their accessories, all of their pull-out trouser racks and their shoe racks and all of these additional things you can buy for these wardrobes that all fit within these 500 wide, a metre wide, or even 750 wide carcasses. You can get your dream wardrobe
100%.
and then make it your own. Bring in those architraves, bring in your joinery handles that you've used in the kitchen and the linen cupboards and the wardrobes. Again, it's those building block materials. But this week, I'm only going to do one house hack.
I know, everyone's devastated. To push on one final bit, just to eke a little bit more out of that. You mentioned in trim, and I think we even mentioned Bunnings last week as places to get higher skirting boards or custom skirting boards for, especially Bunnings, for the cheap. What about handles? Do you have like a couple of quick recommendations for people to just cast their eye over?
I do. I could go nuts with handles. Again, I'm a little bit obsessed. Definitely for kitchens, custom joinery, bathrooms. I'm actually a bit more inclined to not do handles. I love a bit of a finger pull detail. While you're cooking, you kind of don't want handles hitting you in the hip.
Yes.
While you're in the bathroom, you're trying to use the bathroom vanity, you're trying to lean over and use the mirror. You don't want any handles like taking out your hip again. So I'm more into investing in those joinery handles where you're going to see it, where it's going to be most impactful. It's not to do it everywhere on every single cabinet. I'm a big lover of, your tall linens, your walk-in robe, or your built-in wardrobes, even, your appliance cupboard or your integrated fridge, all these little items, and that's where you invest. Instead of going quantity, go quality.
Love it.
So my top picks for some joinery handles are, I'm going to go with designer doorware. Again, a little bit ritzy, a little bit on the expensive side, but you can find some nice ones. The more accessible one, or the more cost-effective one, is a bit of a combination. So Low & Co, so that's L-O, the end symbol, C-O. That's my all-time favourite, just because they have the white, black, brushed brass, brushed nickel, but they've got bronze as well. They have timber. They've kind of got everything, but they've got...
A bit of stone in there as well, actually.
They do. They have marble.
The
Someone's
half
been
moons.
on it.
Oh, my goodness.
Stop.
Even for like entry door hardware as well, guys, check it out.
They've got door levers. Anyway, I'm going to go into our house hacks. Stop. I'm going to go into that into our building block episode. So stop. You're giving away all the secrets too soon.
All right. You happy with that? Or you got any more? Do you have any more?
Even ABI. ABI, they do tapware, but they've actually got joinery hardware available as well. So again, consistency. Consistency is key. If I'm doing, brush tapware from ABI, then, why not get the joinery handles? It's all going to be the same finish. It's all going to be the same color. It's going to match. Low & Co, they've got the, if you do the door levers throughout the home, then you're going to match the joinery handles as well. Everything's going to match. It's going to look amazing.
Mint.
It's going to be great. So that's probably my top 3 hardware.
All right, everybody at home, I hope you enjoyed that. It's now time to move into the meat of the episode. Let's get into it. Building block time. What are building blocks, Mikaela?
Oh, okay. So what are the building blocks or the bones of a new build or a reno? So in my opinion, it is the consistencies across your house or your home. So the same finishes that are seen throughout the house and in each room, they're the bones, they're the building blocks. Similar to, your flooring choice, your paint color. Instead of doing every single room in a different wall color, it's going to be one wall color. You're going to have the same timber flooring or tiles or carpet throughout the home. Trims, doors, hardware, so door profiles, skirting, architraves. Even our ceiling details, if you're doing wall paneling, if you're doing wainscoting, lighting, so any downlights that are going to be consistently used in every single room, even windows or glazing, doors. What's the powder coat colour? Are they timber? Are they painted? Their consistencies across each of these spaces that we're looking at. That's our building blocks. That's what we're building our design from.
Fantastic. All right, so I guess what we'll do is we'll give a little spiel about most of those categories we just touched on.
Yep.
And we'll just go through, and for most of them, they are interior related. So I won't try and flex muscles that I don't have, and I'll let Mikaela definitely do the heavy lifting.
There's a lot of architectural.
But don't worry, there is some. So all of you who keep writing me messages on my own private Instagram saying, Lachlan, we want you to talk more, you'll get your wish. So Mikaela, take it away. Let's talk about some flooring options here.
All right, so some flooring options. This is, again, endless, and it's definitely each their own. I feel, again, we're going back to our mood board and our theme, but also our checklist of how many bedrooms, how large of a space. Is it 2-story? Is it single story? Do we have pets? Do we have a pool? Do we entertain a lot? All of these checklist items, that's going to have a huge impact on these bones or these building blocks that we're choosing for our house. So when it comes to flooring, we have so many options, but our main ones I'm just going to briefly touch on. So we've got timber flooring, be that hardwoods or softwoods. So again, in Australia, predominantly more in Queensland. So I grew up in New South Wales, so we see a lot more timber floors, but a lot of carpet in bedrooms. Not necessarily so much in Queensland. We do a lot more Australian hardwoods, a lot of Queenslanders, obviously, so lots of timber floors. Another option is engineered timber. So this is one of my favourites. I actually have hardwood timbers throughout mine because it was an existing reno, so we kind of built off that. However, if I could have my dream home, engineered timber, all the way premium. I'm going to name drop here, but a bit of tongue and groove. I'm quite obsessed. But yeah, engineered timber. So all that is a timber veneer, be that 6mm, 4mm, 3mm. You can obviously different price points, different budgets, but it's a timber veneer, usually from a European oak, and then that's applied to a base structure. So that's usually a plywood, but obviously in tongue and grooves, board structure, they're a solid oak base, so you're getting quality. It's exactly the same principles as a hardwood. So with a hardwood timber, it's got a base structure or like a tongue and groove component, but then it also has what we would call like a veneer or a usable timber board that you can sand down, restain, refinish. Every board, be that a hardwood or an engineered timber, it's got a life expectancy on that veneer. So there's only so many times you can sand that down, restain it, exactly the same as engineered timber. Obviously, the pros of going with engineered timber is you're getting color consistency. So correct. With that veneer, they treat that veneer, they color it, they smoke it, varnish it to the exact color that you're choosing. So you're getting consistency. Again, you still do have that option, depending on the thickness of the veneer, to be able to sand that and restain it if you wish. Again, tiles. Tiles is a big one. Tiles is super versatile, hard wearing, easy to keep clean. Again, so many formats as well. So you can do large format, you could do 12x6, 6x6, 3x3, 3x6. You can stack bond, you can do a pattern. There's endless options with tiles. But a great aspect of tiles is being able to potentially from your indoor or outdoor space, be able to float that, make it seamless. So go from like an outdoor deck space, drop the exterior sliding doors, and then have this, smooth transition from indoor to outdoor. Again, great to transition from a pool area to an outdoor entertainment to inside, being able to keep that cohesive and seamless. Another option is polished concrete. So again, honed concrete, burnished concrete, there's all different finishes in terms of polished concrete, but a seamless concrete floor, however you treat that. Hybrid flooring, vinyl flooring, laminate flooring, it's kind of all in that either plank or seamless roll finish. Hybrid is obviously a bit of a mix of vinyl versus laminate in one kind of product, usually in a plank form. Vinyl plank as well, I use a lot in commercial settings. We have it here in our office space. Super easy to keep clean. I find it's a lot more realistic than laminate personally. If you were going to an alternative of timber, and you didn't necessarily have the budget for engineered timber or solid hardwoods, I'd be more inclined to go to a vinyl plank. If you're really set on getting that timber look, I would push up the budget of laminate and go to a vinyl plank. I feel like that's going to give you a better embossed structure to the board. It's a lot more realistic. You're still getting some, water resistant properties to that. You get a seamless transition between each board, so less likelihood of, water getting in or any bubbling or any issues with, you don't want that click-clack floor, that?
Yeah.
The old floating laminate floor, and it just feels a bit cheap in my opinion. Carpet, again, another floor finish, personal preference. I love, maybe it's a New South Wales thing, I'm not sure, but I love having carpet in the bedrooms. To me, that's really luxurious, being able to step out on wool, and again, personal preference as well. But yeah, carpet for me is a big one, and I can do a whole episode just on flooring.
We are going to do a whole episode.
We're going to do a whole episode, especially carpet. I feel like people need to be educated.
So much. I thought carpet was carpet, but you're listing off things like loop pile,
cut pile,
oh my
twist
goodness.
pile. We need solution dyed versus wool dirt. There's honestly, there's so much that we can go into. A huge fan of
the right carpet.
The right carpet. Is there a right carpet? We don't know. We'll go through. I'll teach you. In my opinion, or in my personal preference, or what I guide my clients towards, I'm a big fan of getting the best that your budget allows for, and being true and authentic to materials. So I will always opt for true timber versus a timber look product. If your budget doesn't allow for timber, do a beautiful tile. You don't have to replicate a true product. I always find, if you get a timber look tile, you can always tell that it's not timber. So even if you get laminate that's trying to represent timber, again, I'm really picky with that, and I'd be more inclined to be true to form, true to the material, and you're always going to get a better outcome. It's going to feel more natural. You're going to still get texture and warmth from these materials. So yeah, be true to form.
True to your mood board.
True to your mood board.
Think, what would your mood board say? All right. I think that covers floor coverings really nicely. We'll move on to a bit of paint colour and wall treatments now. Another area that you are absolutely gun at.
I wouldn't go that far, but in terms of wall colours, wall treatments, again, I'm going to dedicate a whole episode just to paint, to colours, making sure people... I'm going to, put out a few of my favourites, list some of my favourite paint colours, but then tell you why I like them, what colour they're more based towards. There's always going to be a warm and a cool, or a yellow based, a pink based, or, I don't want everyone out there to be like, I chose this beautiful colour and now I have a baby pink house. Like, we can avoid that.
Yeah, without necessarily going white on white.
I've experimented. Options. I'm gonna put myself in here and tell a little bit of an embarrassing story. So I remember my first year, I was a baby interior designer. A baby interior designer. I was fresh-faced. So as a baby interior designer, I was walking into an architecture practice that specialises in multi-residential. So being townhouses, apartments, large, we do 150 plus apartments, or we do boutique, 4 to 6 beautiful apartments on the river, say, or at the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast. So we do a wide array of projects, but this one in particular was a 4-tower development, 150 plus apartments per tower.
Oh no.
I was a baby. I'm just going to reiterate that. I was an absolute baby, had no idea what I was doing, let's be real. And I chose what I thought was a beautiful white. Can't get it wrong, it's a white, right? No, I have to drive past this development on a major highway and stare at baby pink buildings. 4 towers, beautiful, baby pink on the highway. Do
you remember what white it was?
I do.
And it was?
I don't want to say it in case someone has painted their house and they're like, I love that colour. So I'm not
but
going
it
to
might work for you, but maybe exactly. Not for 4 towers. Not
on a 4 towers, not on a 20-storey 4-tower development. Absolutely not. Especially when all the cladding, the roof colours, everything was like, I swear it was like 2013, 2014, and it was like the era of like 50 Shades of Grey. Like every building was like white, black, and every shade in between. Not these ones.
Baby pink and every shade of grey in between.
Yes, with like sun hoods, wall cladding, it was atrocious. So anyway, Side note, we're going to go into paint because you know what? I've made the mistakes, so you can learn from them. We've already done it. I'm not going to give you a baby pink house. So our next category is paint color and wall treatment. So we've got wainscoting. We can do a beautiful, wainscoting, half height. We can do picture rails, chair rails, you name it. We've got VJ boards. We can do, if you're in a coastal house, not even a coastal house, more a traditional house, we can add some beautiful vertical cladding. We've got paneling. So kind of instead of wainscoting where we're looking at, chair rail height down, we can just do some beautiful paneling. It'll be stunning. We can do full height. We can do particular walls. Heaps of options there. And then colors between walls and trims. Okay, so this is a little bit of a hack on our paint. And I'll go to it more when we go into colors and paint. However, I'm a big fan. So I'm blessed to actually have a father-in-law as a painter. So he's able to give me heaps of tips and hints all about painting and obviously renovating when we've done our first and our second house. We honestly could not have done it without my father. He's a gun, absolute gun. So pretty much did it by himself. He did all the painting, showed us how to do everything. We had to scrape original boards on the outside of our house. We had lead paint. It was awful. And he was there with us every step of the way. But the little hints and tips that he gave me was the color between the walls and the trims, and then colors between internal walls, external walls, and fences. My house hack, are we putting it in the house hack category?
Listen, we said we were only going to do one house hack this week, and this is why, because in the body of this thing, we're going to give you little tips, little bits of information.
Okay, so again, back in the day, probably like 20, 30 years ago, it used to be common practice to ceiling, walls, all your architraves, your skirting, all in the one colour. Not anymore. We're in the 2000s here. We've gained a little bit of knowledge. So I love, again, going back to our skirting heights and our architraves heights. So we're trying to get the most impact out of those skirtings. We've just invested into it. We've gone really high. We've done Lockie's hint and trick, and we've, made it only 11 mil. We haven't wasted with the super deep profile. Again, great for cleaning. So you don't want to be walking around your house trying to dust those. So we've invested into this skirting. We want that as bright and as white as possible. So my hint and tip is to go skirting, architraves, and doors, pure white as you can get. So either untinted white or, Dulux colours, for instance, that I use a lot is Lexicon Quarter, Vivid White. They're our really crisp whites. So we want that contrast between our skirting, our architraves, and our doors. We want that contrast to the wall. So I suggest going that little bit darker, getting that contrast. You don't have to go crazy dark, but we do need a colour variation. So that's my first little tip for inside. Make use of those skirtings. There's no point hiding them. And then when it comes to outside, so I use this little hack, and actually, again, I got it from my father-in-law. Thank you very much, Bradley Garrick. But my little hack for outside, which I was genuine, I didn't believe it until he painted it and I saw it and I was like, oh, wow. Yeah.
Seeing is believing.
Yeah, it blew me away. So, for instance, again, I'm going to do a little bit of a paint or color name drop that I used in my own house. So I went with Dulux ghosting on our internal walls. Then on the outside of our house, we did Dulux paving stone. Then on our fences, or our external fences on the inside, we did Rogue, Dulux Rogue. I know that doesn't mean much when I'm rattling off names. However, because we are at an architecture practice and obviously have all the interior design samples, we are blessed to have a Dulux paint swatch. When you look up Dulux ghosting in our Dulux paint swatch, double strength ghosting, or 2 colours down from ghosting, is paving stone.
No way.
Oh, there's more. So,
wait, what?
Double strength paving stone.
Surely not.
Is Rogue.
No.
It is. Crazy. So, now, the little hint and tip that obviously sounds simple, obviously, when you think about it like that. But if you are outside, and again, I'm in Brisbane, so it's very, very bright, very, very sunny 90% of the year. When I'm standing outside and I look at my external fence, then I'm looking at my external wall, and then I can see through inside the house and see ghosting. It all looks to be the same colour.
The same colour.
It's because the light reflectancy that's absorbing into, again, our fence is in the most amount of light. Then our sun, obviously, when it hits the side of our house, that's getting filtered light, sometimes through trees or adjacent buildings. And then obviously inside, we've got a roof and ceiling and walls. I love that consistency that gives. I love how smooth and seamless it feels. It feels like one colour throughout the spaces. And it just, to me, again, it's that building block that is consistencies. We've picked one color that we love. We haven't gone, I've seen it so many times as well when people pick, a beautiful white inside the house and they've loved it and they've spent months and months and months considering this perfect wall color. And then they go to the outside of the house and they, again, do the same process and they think a million times. Because again, it's expensive. You can spend, 10, 20, 30 grand on getting your house professionally painted. So you want to make the right choice. So my suggestion is if you stay within that same swatch, or you can just go, if you do Lexicon quarter on your walls and then you're doing Lexicon half on the outside of your house and then you're doing Lexicon full strength on your fences, it's all going to feel really holistic.
Yes.
And it's going to feel really, really clean. It's going to reflect the same light. But the thing is, it's all got the same. They all have the same undertone. So they're all the same color. You're not choosing a slightly pink white and then you're choosing a slightly blue-based grey, and then you're going a greeny tinge grey on the outside of your fence because you've independently looked at all of these colours and you love them. But when you see them painted on such a mass area, it changes. It changes how light reflects in that space, how the sun hits it in shadow versus, full sun. It's going to give you a completely different colour. So that's my house hack.
Amen.
Double strength everything internal.
Double it. And then crisp white for those internal doors.
Yes.
That's the play.
That is my
I love that.
secondary house hack.
I'll jump on a little bit there as well. Just a tip or a little hint. In the architectural world, something that we deal with every now and again is luminance contrast between, especially it's mainly for entry doors going into apartment buildings or even for houses. It's a good thing to keep in mind is you want about a 30% colour difference if you can achieve it between your door leaf, so the actual door panel itself, and say the architraves around the door or the door frame. The reason for that is if you come across someone with a
visual impairment.
If someone's got a visual impairment, that 30% difference can make it all. Instead of it just the door blending in with the wall, it gives them a clear outline of where it is. Really important in the architectural world, especially with egress. So if you're trying to exit a building in a hurry, being able to spot that, especially in like a low light condition, that's a tip.
Yep, 100%. Even obviously for functionality and egress, as Lachlan explained, but even for visual impact, again, we want to see those architraves. We want to see that beautiful skirting. We want to see the joinery, like the door hardware lever on that door, and we want it to punch. If you've got this beautiful bronze door lever on this crisp white door, it's going to punch a lot more than something, say if you choose a very warm beige toned white, and it's always going to look like it's been a bit off colour or yellowed.
Takes a little bit out of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
all right. Well, building on that, while we're talking about crisp skirting profiles, let's jump straight into it. So we have touched on this slightly in one of our previous home hacks with our trim doors and hardware. So Mikaela, you're a big fan of 2400 high doors where you can, just a little bit something extra. If you can't, 2100 is your standard. If you've got oodles of ceiling height space, 27 if you can. Anything over 2400 or 2100 is custom. So just keep that in mind when you're kind of budgeting it all together. So door profiles is something, it can be done in an interesting way, especially if you go into say your parents' house and they've got the classic 4 panels profile.
Look, I feel, again, we're bashing on the 80s and the 90s here a little bit, but there's new ways of doing door paneling now.
Just a flat door, guys.
No, I'm actually quite into door panels at the moment. I know, controversial, and I'm not talking about, again, the 80s.
Hang on, let me change my opinion. I love door panels now, guys.
No, I'm actually a bit of a fan of door panels now. So again, done right. Let's not go back to the 80s or the 90s with the old, square profiles everywhere. No, I love, again, I'm just going to name drop as well so you guys can do your own research at home, but places like Corinthian, again, a lot of these doors as well are actually available through Bunnings. They're done at custom orders as well. So if you want, an 820, 870, even if you want like a tiny door, like a 620 or
if you've got a little broom cupboard that you don't want to do a joinery door for.
Yeah, just get that. I think they're even down to like 520 doors.
Yes.
You can so you can definitely
hide your hot water heater away if it's inside.
Corinthian, they actually do some solid oak doors, which are absolutely beautiful as well.
Yeah.
They do a wide oak
I guess
door.
Going on that, while we're talking about door profiles, what are your thoughts on the old arch door? I've been seeing that a lot recently.
It has been done.
But it's very difficult, I guess, from my point of view, because those doors, when you're buying an interior door, it's usually a semi-solid core door. I think for a majority of those arch doors, unless you're paying quite a bit of extra money, they're going to have to be solid core doors to get that profile.
And then be able to obviously be shaped.
Weight and cost.
Definitely. Do you want to tell us, actually, I get a bit of an architectural query, but do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about the pros and cons of going semi-hollow core and solid, and in which instances would you be more inclined to choose the solid?
So your external doors, solid core all day, every day. Even to go on from my paint tip a little bit earlier on, if you've got an external door that's out in the sun and you paint that black, not say night sky or monument, something that I've learnt the hard way is it will warp, because the amount of sun that goes into it, and it even extends to things like your roller door for your garage. If you've got that in black and that's out in the sun, I think there's even some door manufacturers that won't provide you a warranty, because it will fail. It's not a question of if, but it's a question of when and it's pretty soon. Even
warping, not necessarily just from heat, but from water as well. That's why it has to be solid.
Yep. So seal the underside of your doors, guys. Do yourself a favour.
100%. Water, it'll come in no matter what. Even if it's under a huge awning, it will come in.
Because it's not even so much water itself, but condensation.
Just moisture. Yep.
There's so many different ways that water tries to ruin your house. So the more we can do to prevent it, the better. Solid core doors for your external doors, big fan. If you've got the budget, internally they're a little bit better acoustically in terms of how they perform.
Or my little hack just on that, I'm a big fan of doing a solid core door on your laundries. If you've got a dryer, trust me, worth it. And I always try and do a hinge door. So do you want to tell us, I know Lockie is the absolute gun at windows and door schedules in the office as well. Holla, here we go. This is his time to shine here, guys. Yeah. In what instances would you find doing a hinge door versus a cavity slider, for instance?
Ooh. All right. So the main, or I guess when I'm drafting things up or designing things, the main reason I'll throw cavity sliders in is to try and avoid situations, I guess mainly the ones you look at is door-on-door action, where you've got two hinge doors opening into the same path.
Oh, I hate that.
If you can get rid of it, and then even if that hinge door still opens onto the cavity opening, you can have your floor-mounted door stop kind of tucked in the corner out of the way so you're not tripping over it, and you still get that clear thoroughfare. Other instances where it can be of benefit is those really tight, odd spaces. I notice a lot of doors going into en-suites and bathrooms can sometimes be cavity sliders. Not so much for bathrooms, because you want that hinge door for the acoustic properties. Same for bedrooms. You want hinge doors to try and seal as much as you can off in terms of noise. Something to keep in consideration though is if you're putting in a cavity slider door, the width of the door, and you may be sitting there going, no duh, but the width of the door, that's going to slide into the wall. So you can't put something in there. The main issue we have, say a client comes to us from another designer, or they've got a house plan they've drawn themselves and they've drawn a cavity slider door. Your number one thing you always say is, where is the towel rails going?
Yep, honestly.
And it's always towel rails usually end up tucked behind a door. But the issue is if it's tucked behind a door and it's a cavity slider door, that's where that cavity slider is going to try and tuck back into. So ways around it, you just need to use different wall fixings, maybe put a bit of ply in the wall for a bit of structural backing so you don't have to use as deep fixings. But it's something to think about early on. In bedrooms, if you're doing it to go into a walk-in robe, wall-mounted TVs is, I guess, from a bedroom side, that's another one that can interfere with it. Robe hooks.
Electrical in-wall systems as well. If you're doing toilet suites, usually in master en-suites, there's a lot of occasions where we use the cavity sliders. However, we always want in-wall systems for our toilets. Again, we can't really put that in the wall if we've got a door going or using that space. So we're going to have to, create a whole nother false wall in front of it, beef it all out. We just need to make sure that there's allowance there. In terms of my interior preference, I will actually 99.9% of the time aim to remove cavity sliders where possible. I'm a big fan of hinged. If you need a door on a room, there's a reason why you need that door, usually acoustic or privacy. So we want to block out the sound. We want to be able to close off that room. The only other reason where I would feel like a cavity slider is necessary is spaces where you want to be able to come in and out easily.
Flow through. So butlers' pantries. Oh, that's a big one. Yep.
I'm a big fan of, again, cavity sliders in that situation where you just want to close off all the dirty stuff. If people come over, you can close off the butler's pantry. can be an absolute mess. No one will see it. Close it off. But while you're cooking, you want to be able to go in and out of that butler's pantry easily. You want to be able to use that space functionally. So I'm a big fan of a cavity slider in that situation. Another cavity slider opportunity is in a walk-in robe.
Yeah.
So again, we want to be able, if it's adjacent to an ensuite, for instance, I'm again a big fan of removing your thoroughfare through your wardrobe. So I always try and remove the thoroughfare space between going from your bedroom to your walk-in robe, then to your ensuite. I always try and remove that. So you want separate access to your walk-in robe and separate access to your ensuite. That's again just to remove, like for waterproofing issues, removing steam from your clothes. You just don't want any moisture anywhere near your clothes.
Correct.
Again, I like to open up the walk-in robe with a cavity slider and be able to get in and out, go from my ensuite to my bedroom and back and forth. That's probably my 2 opportunities where I would say yes, cavity slider.
Yeah.
Everywhere else,
Hinge door if you can.
Yeah, even small little tips about, Lockie touched on it before with the door stops, being able to put a floor mount door stop all the way back at the base of the door. So obviously when it opens, it's hitting right at the edge, right at the rear of the door panel. Another little hint that I picked up is you can just do 90-degree hinge. It doesn't have to...
Yeah, good point.
You know, you can get those 90-degree hinges, stop the door. You don't even need a door stop, but it's at least allowing you for that privacy, that acoustic treatment. Being able to open up a hinge door onto a wall is obviously the preference. Yep. Again, another like hint and tip is I try and avoid it where possible, where you've got a bedroom or a space and it's the doors floating in the middle of the room. I always try and always try and tuck those doors into the corner of a space.
Agreed.
What are your thoughts actually on external cavity sliders? You know, the old barn doors.
Ooh. I don't like them.
Every architect and interior designer does not like barn doors.
There's a time and a place, and it usually is not the time and a place because it's not a barn.
That is such a good point.
Unless you make, if the door is your statement, I cannot live without
Find
this door.
Another
like
statement.
If it's a really nice door, I can respect that, but
do that on your front door.
Just do a hinged or a cavity slider, or the alternative, especially because I think I see a lot of those barn doors for butlers' pantries. Why don't we use one of your hidden tricks? Why don't we build it out of cabinetry and have it as a hidden door? So you just think it's a cupboard. Oh my goodness, there's a whole butler's pantry tucked in behind here.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
There's a time and place.
Yeah, there's a market for it. It's just not me. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
He's not a part of the market.
Yeah. Before we move on from the door segment, I think we should briefly touch on at least hardware in terms of lever sets.
Oh yeah.
So you got your entry set, key lockable. You can add a deadbolt there. Double down, fantastic. Privacy latches, great for bedrooms. Have that little kind of metallic snib push-in thing.
Oh, there's all different ones these days.
Oh, are there?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
It's gone a little bit beyond me, but great for privacy, especially if you've got kids who might accidentally lock themselves in a room. You just grab like a skewer and poke it in from the other side.
A butter knife.
A butter knife. That's not fitting in my one. So you've got privacy. You've got passage sets, which are
a lever without a lock.
Yeah. So it'll still click in to the mortise, but there's no lock. So great place for that would be a butler's pantry. Butler's pantry, maybe a laundry, depending on what you're doing in the laundry. You might want a privacy set. I don't know. Passage sets are great. And then you've got dummy latches.
Yep, which is just a fixed lever, exactly the same as a passage set, but it doesn't push down. So it's just a fixed lever. Yeah,
and you'll have like a little kind of squeak. You know, you'll know it at home, like that squeaky little kind of latch thing on the inside, the rubber one that goes, and then you kind of like pull it out from there.
Oh, sound effects are great today.
The Foley's in studio. All right. So that's... Oh, go.
I'm so sorry. We've also got our like flush sets, like our flush doors. So all of our cavity slider hardware, if we've got any flush pulls, again, do we want to touch on it? But double cavity sliders, I'm a no-no.
Double cavity sliders are like barn doors, guys. Don't do them.
No.
Even double hinge doors sometimes don't work because you lose all the security and privacy because the middle's the weakest.
Do you know how many projects we've done where they wanted, the big double door entries to the master suite? And then they end up being like 2 520 wide doors that no one can fit through one. Yeah. So then you have to open 2 at the same time, but then only one locks. And then you need like a deadlock up the top of the door.
Or even a drop bolt
like
in
a drop
floor,
bolt.
And then you've got a metal strip in your nice carpet.
They're horrendous. Yeah. I can't.
Listen, I think if this show is going to take a stance, I'm more than happy to be on board for no barn doors and no double doors, whether they be cavity or hinged.
Agreed.
Are we happy with that? Maybe entry doors? Maybe entry doors?
Entry doors, but I have a little bit of a soft spot for like the Georgian or French manors. So
Okay.
I'm all for the big, huge double doors, but there needs to be allowance for it. And if you've got, a French manor-sized home that can allow for it, and you've got plenty of wall space when you first enter, you need light switch placement, you need to be able to keep those doors open all the time and be able to close them equally and easily. Great. Again, there's a place for every door.
Agree. Totally agree. All right, let's jump onto ceilings now.
All right.
I'm going to just drop some knowledge. Everyone at home, strap in, get out your notepad, prepare to rewind and hit this. So,
here we go.
Ceiling heights, I'll say there's a couple. I won't give a number because I'll just keep coming up with them.
Oh,
so,
can we? I just want a little bit of like architectural chat and knowledge that maybe not all of our listeners are aware of, but there is actually a legal standard
Yes.
for ceiling heights across the board for particular areas as well.
It is. And I might have to edit this because I might get it wrong or forget things. But your non-habitable rooms, so areas like bathrooms, laundries, you can go down to 2100 high in those rooms. If you need to, higher is better, but that's your minimum. For habitable spaces like bedrooms and living rooms, you're looking at 2400 minimum. Now, you might be at home and you're looking at your ceiling, you've got a dirty big bulkhead running through the middle because there's a beam from upstairs, and you're like, oh, well, that beam caps out at 2100 high. That's fine.
The majority.
I think the rule is 2/3 of the ceiling height has to be at 2400 or an average of 2400. So say you've got, or the ceiling has to average out for 2/3 at 2400. So say you do have that, a large section that is dropped. Happens a lot in apartment buildings when you're trying to do a reno and do something a little bit new. Mm-hmm. Just push it up, build the average, she'll be right if you've got the space. Mm-hmm. Those are some things to keep in mind. Having said that, if there is an existing condition on your ceiling, so you'll see in a lot of Queenslanders where the ceiling drops down to 1900 and you can't raise that up.
Or even if we've got like funky roof structure and
you've
roof
got
lines
bullnose
and we've
roofs,
got,
good luck. If that's an existing condition, have a chat to a certifier, you might be okay. It's just something to keep in mind because you can't change that easily. Ideally, you'd love to, but then you might start creating issues in terms of drainage with roofs and gutters and water.
Gutters.
Water is worse. Yeah, box gutters, no thank you. If you can avoid them, unless they're very tasteful. So, as we're saying, so 2100 it's not a standard ceiling height in a bathroom.
It's the minimum.
You will see it in some places, so it's good to understand why that is. Generally as well over bathrooms, because you're allowed to drop it a little bit lower. Sometimes it's where your mechanical ventilation will be, if you're in an apartment, essentially like your air conditioning units. 2100, 2400 is a standard. 2550 is also a standard. Now, why is 2550 a standard? Because plasterboard sheets come in two widths. 1200 and 1350. So you can kind of work back from any of those and get your stand height. So 2400 is two sheets of 1200, done. 2550, a sheet of 1200, sheet of 1350, 2700, 1350, 1350.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Anything above that where you've got people having to cut sheets, time and money. So that's why you won't see it in project homes.
Wow, so this is the reno game versus the project home game.
This is it.
It's wow.
Other options are raked ceilings.
Oh, a fan. Huge.
I think another bold stance, a very brave stance that the show can take, if you've got ceiling height to gain, grab it.
Always.
It's worth it.
Always.
Within reason.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm a big fan of like, if I could have 5, 6, 7 meter high ceilings, I would go higher the better. I think as well a big selling point in homes is, and I think it's on the list here to mention, is like voids, double height voids. So I would sacrifice square meterage in terms of usable floor plan to be able to obtain a void in my house.
Agreed.
I think that would be huge. Being able to add more natural light, more glazing, higher ceilings, it makes the space feel grand, opulent. You're adding all the necessities in terms of ventilation and light. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a big wow selling point. It's the focal point of a home. If you can get in a feature rake ceiling, a void, coffered ceilings, I think you touched on that last time you went to was it a sales display or like a sales home?
Yeah.
And it was impactful. Obviously, you took away from that and you remembered that space because of that ceiling. And again, interiors is, you don't have to be cookie cutter with it. You can, this is supposed to be your own home, and having these focal points or these things that you walk away from or people walk away from and go, gosh, that made a difference. Or, oh, I loved that detail. That's what it's all about. You can have fun with it. And again, roof heights or roof structures, ceiling heights, feature ceilings, skylights, coffered ceilings. Like, this is the opportunity to kind of...
This is it.
This is it. This is my dream. I love, love, love feature ceilings.
Love it. So another thing that we love to try and incorporate when we can, usually can't do it in apartment buildings because there's a slab above you, voids.
Oh.
If you've got the ability to have a 2-story house or a 2-story dwelling, sometimes happens in apartments, voids, in my opinion, that is, you know the memes where it's like, tell me you've got great taste in money without telling me you've got great taste in money. And you just show the void. You show them the photo of your void.
Well, would like to know, didn't you have a void in your project last week?
Yes, I did have a project last week that had a void in the
South Yarra house.
South Yarra house by Lander, not Landy, Lander Architects. I fixed it. Just impactful. What a great way.
Huge.
I mean, another bold stance we can take. Tall window furnishings. If you've got a double height void, if you've got a 6 metre ceiling and you've got 6 metre sheer curtains.
So impactful.
Stop it.
Stunning. Beauty and the Beast moment.
Unreal. Beautiful. So, voids, big vibe. Coffered ceilings, big vibe. Skylights, both big fans of skylights. Once again, South Yarra house. Check out that oval skylight in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. Did
Beautiful.
anyone notice that, please?
My goodness.
It was my favourite.
Unreal. And talking about window furnishings a little bit further, the only downside to window furnishings is how they work. We don't want to know that. We want a little bit of magic. So how do you do that? Pelmet.
Boom.
Hide it away, everybody.
Okay, so for our listeners out there, a pelmet is, in layman's terms, it's just a bulkhead. Let's be real. It's a bulkhead with a provision concealed to be able to allow for any window furnishings. Is that about right, Lockie?
I think that's about right.
Yeah, that's about right. So, in terms of pelmets, we have actually designed pelmet designs or ceiling details post-construction. So, if you're doing a reno and you don't want to see all of your hardware, you don't want to see the ceiling track, you don't want to see the roller blind, you can actually you can drop the ceiling or create a dropped pelmet design post-construction, can't you? It's
100%.
Not for these people who are just building new and can get it in.
You can do it, and other benefits is it maybe blocks out a little bit more light because at the top of your sheer curtains where the eyelets meet, there's a gap there. So block out a little bit more light.
You'll see it a lot in hotel design. They'll always do it
Yes.
in hotel design to make sure that obviously the whole glazing is completely and utterly block out. But huge tip, next time you actually go to a hotel or staying somewhere, beautiful, and they've got a whole glazing wall or glazed wall and they've got a beautiful ceiling treatment, look at how they're doing the curtains.
Yes.
Look at how they're doing the blinds. It's also an opportunity to hide any mechanics or electric. So if you're doing electric blinds.
Yes.
And it's all remote access, all of that can be concealed. You can get an electrician in to be able to obviously wire power to that space. That'll all be hidden thanks to the pelmet or
That's it.
a dodgy bulkhead.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Well, Mikaela, we're only halfway through our list of what we wanted to talk about in this episode. So everyone at home, this is a two-parter.
Oh, I think so. I don't want to rush it. We've got such good stuff coming up.
What we're going to do is we're going to leave this one here and we'll pick up next episode and we'll continue walking through our building blocks. And then we're even going to maybe touch on your wish list, just as a little bit at the end there in terms of now that you've got all this information and you've got your mood board done.
You've got your theme.
Theme.
That just nice.
100%. Nice is a great theme. How do we then kind of formulate your wish list? What are your items that you absolutely cannot live without if you're going to be undertaking this experience? I hope you all enjoy this episode as much as we did. Feel free to send through any questions you have through to our Instagram @GrabTheTrace. If you could also take some time to rate, review, subscribe and share, that would be immensely helpful. As I mentioned earlier, if you do any written reviews, we'll read them out on the show.
Please send through questions. I loved last episode being able to rattle off. Thanks, Jesse and Ben. I think that was great.
It. Mikaela, thank you very much for your time this week. Thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time.